When I took in a stranger and his son, I never imagined their arrival would change everything. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. My heart raced as I opened the door, the chill of the autumn air hitting me hard. There he stood, wild-eyed and disheveled. His son, a small boy clinging to his leg, stared up at me with curious, innocent eyes. I didn't know why I let them in. Maybe it was the way the man's hands trembled, or the haunting silence that loomed around them like a thick fog. In that moment, my quiet home felt like a movie set, shaky, raw, and on the brink of chaos. The man introduced himself as Ben. His voice was hoarse, like gravel crunching underfoot. He looked worn, like he hadn't slept in days. I glanced down at his son. Pale skin, unkempt hair. His cheeks were red, not from the cold but from fear. I felt a tightness in my chest. What brought them here? As Ben stepped inside, the atmosphere shifted. It felt electric. I flicked the lights to illuminate him, a fleeting moment of clarity. In the harsh glow, I noticed the way he flinched as the light hit his face, like it burned. I hesitated, a lump forming in my throat. What secret did he carry? My car broke down, he said finally, but his eyes darted to the window, as if expecting someone to come crashing through. That glance sent shivers down my spine. Was he running from something? Or someone? My heart pounded in response to my racing thoughts. I led them to the living room. The walls closed in around us, and I felt the weight of their presence like a suffocating blanket. The son, still clutching his father's leg, peeked at me through his lashes. I wondered what horrors his eyes had witnessed. I could almost hear the echoes of their hidden stories, broken promises, lost hopes. Ben sat down, his body tense, every muscle coiled like a tightly wound spring. The silence grew. It was thick, palpable. I opened my mouth to break it, but words slipped away. I wanted to know everything, yet part of me feared what truths they might reveal. Then came the sound of a faint knock at the door. My skin prickled. Who could it be? My heart quickened. Ben's expression shifted in an instant. Panic washed over him, a visceral response that left me breathless. Don't answer that. He hissed, eyes wide with terror. The room spun. A chill slithered down my spine. What had I invited into my life? I stood frozen, torn between obedience and curiosity. My heart drummed painfully in my chest. Every instinct screamed out for me to run. Please, he whispered, desperation cracking his voice. Not now, not yet. His son cowered, pressing himself against his father. I felt their fear seep into me, saturating my thoughts. But the knocks persisted. A relentless drumbeat against the door. I glanced at Ben, then back at the door. Who was out there? And what would happen if I opened it? My breath quickened. I couldn't ignore the weight of that decision. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The knocking ceased, replaced by a suffocating silence that hung heavily in the air. My heart raced, thrumming in my ears like a desperate call for escape. I looked at Ben, whose eyes darted toward the door as if he could sense the danger lurking beyond it. I felt a strange kinship with him, as if the weight of his fear pressed against my chest, demanding to be shared. Please, he implored again, his voice a mere whisper. I can't let them find us. I'm begging you. The desperation in his tone shattered any semblance of composure I thought I had done. My mind raced through consequences, each thought more volatile than the last. Should I keep them here, exposed to whatever shadow hunted them? Should I confront the figures lurking outside, armed only with questions? A mix of fear and empathy swirled within me, binding me to the moment. Then, as swiftly as darkness had descended, a flicker of kindness ignited in my breast. My instincts told me to protect them, to give them a fleeting refuge from the opaque storm surrounding them. I had no idea of their past, yet something told me they were worthy of trust. "How long do you think it will take?" I managed to croak. My voice trembled, betraying my own fear. I wanted my words to be fortified with resolve. "Not long," Ben replied slowly, looking up from the floor where his eyes had landed, pleading for reassurance. "Just a few minutes." They don't always stay long," the son fidgeted, his wide eyes slowly gaining warmth, noticing my wavering resolve. He slipped his hand free from Ben's grasp and took a cautious step toward me. "Are we safe here?" he asked, his voice innocent yet heavy. I knelt to his height, my heart swelling and aching for him at the same time. "For now, sweetheart." I reached out, brushing a stray lock of hair from his forehead. "Can I get you something? Water? A snack?" It felt like a lifeline thrown into churning waters. Each attempt to comfort them turned into a subtle act of defiance against the anxiety suffocating us. That he shook his head, eyes still wide with uncertainty. "I just want my dad to be okay." His words pierced through the tense air, every syllable carrying a world of concern. Ben's expression melted for a moment, vulnerability flickering through his otherwise guarded demeanor. It struck me a father's love, raw and fierce, battling whatever monsters loomed outside. "I'm okay, buddy," he reassured softly, reaching down to cup his son's face. "I promise. Just stay close to me." But even as he said it, I could see the darkness accumulate in his gaze, like clouds rolling over a sunlit sky. An unsettling thought gnawed at me. I wanted to believe his words, to let hope seep through the cracks, yet the look in his eye told a different story. Just then, a sound cut through the silence, a low rumble of voices, raised in urgency. The fear returned, red-hot and clamoring. I glanced at Ben, whose jaw tightened, his eyes narrowing to slits as he surveyed the window. "They're coming," he whispered, and a flicker of panic erupted within me. My heart plummeted. I could hear it now, the distant murmur wrapping its way around my senses, swirling through my head. "That we need to hide." "Now," he said, his voice clipped, accelerating with unease. Before I could respond, he was hauling his son closer, urgency transforming their movement. The boy instinctively reached for a cardboard box in the corner, a forgotten remnant of my last attempt at a tidy home. "Here, under the table," I suggested, knowing it would be a tight fit but only momentarily grounding us within a world of safety. They slipped underneath, intertwined in a tangle of limbs, and feared that I stood still, uncertainty rippling through me. Was I ready for what was about to unfold? My heart thudded violently as I reminded myself that some decisions had to be made in absolute darkness. The knocks returned, overlapping with the murmurs outside, becoming a chaotic symphony that tugged at my courage. My breathing grew shallow, each inhalation punctuated by the clamoring fear around me, but still, a part of me held firm to the thread of hope woven into this strange yet burgeoning bond. Then, through the glass, I saw Thima's silhouette standing ominously, their features indiscernible. They shifted, appearing discontent. My insides twisted in a prayer that I wouldn't be forced to confront whoever they were. But then, just before I could take a shuddering breath to decide my next move, the figure turned, catching the dull glow of the hallway light. My heart stopped, recognition washing over me like an icy tide. I knew that face, one that sent chills through my bones, and with that recognition came the crushing weight of the truth. This was no coincidence. My reality was unraveling in front of me, entangling with the darkest strands of their potent uninvited crescendo of sympathy and chaos. Time froze, leaving me teetering on the edge of what I thought I knew. The walls around me pulsed with an impending storm, and I realized the true battle was just beginning. The world outside continued to blur and swim as I struggled to process the figure in the hallway. The familiarity clawed at my memory, dredging up shadows I thought I had long buried beneath layers of neglect and time. A face that should have been a ghost, a person tangled in the fabric of my past, laced with a history I could neither forget nor fully confront. That I crouched beside the table, the shadows of Ben and his son enveloping me, providing a semblance of structure amidst the chaos roiling within. Their whispers trickled into the cramped space, unaware of the raging currents swirling just beyond the whispers of our refuge. Ben's tense features reflected my own, both of us now caught in a web of unrelenting choices. I could feel the heat of anger mixing with fear, as if something dark and ancient stirred within me, demanding to be unleashed. I barely could process the sensation of Ben's hand gripping my arm, grounding me in the present. "You know them?" he asked, his voice strained but steady, searching me with those desperate, flickering eyes. "Two don't know," I stammered, the honesty of my answer hitting me hard. "It's complicated." The boy, curled up tightly against his father's side, peered out from the shadows, innocence contrasting sharply with the urgency of our hiding place. "Are we going to be okay?" he asked again, and my heart fractured at his despair, fragments floating away into the chasm of the fear enveloping us. As I forced a smile I didn't quite feel, I caught a movement outside that made my blood run cold. The familiar figure stepped closer, silhouetted against the weak hallway light, a friend or so I had once thought betrayed by their very presence. And yet, I felt something else lurking beneath the churning sense of dread. A thread of sympathy, maybe even a rhyme of kindness in their calculated steps, a glimmer of humanity still beating beneath the surface. That I drew breath, steadying myself. "I won't let anything happen to you," I assured Ben and his son, even as the doubt pricked at the back of my mind. The door, the barrier between our fragile sanctuary and the chaos of what lay beyond, felt impossibly flimsy now. My gaze locked onto Ben's, and I saw in him a determination mirrored in my own, as if we had both reached the precipice of an emotional chasm we hadn't anticipated traversing. "What was her name?" I blurted out in a whisper, the question hanging between us like a lifeline tethering us to the truth of what brought us here. "Sarah," he gasped, each syllable tinged with a shuddering wake of ghosts passing through. "Do you know her?" Immediately, a rush of memories crashed over me. Sarah, the gleaming laughter, shared secrets, and the fated crossroads that had twisted our lives into the silent trails we now walked. She had been a vibrant light, one I had thought extinguished long ago until now. "I used to," I said quietly, the weight of the past crashing against the coast of our present circumstance. "But it's been a long time." Ben recoiled slightly, disbelief washing over him. "What do you mean?" "Shesh's gone, isn't she?" The question landed heavily, adhesive and suffocating. I had managed to convince myself of that certainty, but witnessing that familiar silhouette stoked the fire of doubt, igniting the murmurs of the past I had tried to suppress. Suddenly, the figure outside turned toward the door, tilting their head. A faint expression crossed their face, flashing uncertainty rather than malice. I found myself pulling in closer, my own curiosity violated by reluctance. Could they still be good? A small flash of resolve whispered through the chaos of my heart. Maybe, just maybe, they were here for a reason. Maybe their presence didn't mean doom, but a chance at reconciliation, a chance to peel back the layers of betrayal and face what had been lost. And so, with a deep breath that felt like a prayer, before I could think better of it, I gently placed my fingers on Ben's arm, preparing to reveal the fragments of truth that could alter everything. "What if they're not here to hurt you?" But just as the words left my lips, the sound of the doorknob twisting echoed with finality, a hollow gravitas making my stomach knot. The air constricted, and I froze as the door creaked open. All I could think about was Ben's child's innocent gaze and the intertwined fates that had led us to this moment. The doorway became a threshold not just into this room but into the tumultuous heart of everything we had ever known. As light flooded the space illuminating truths unwritten, I was unprepared for what lay ahead, chilling repercussions rippling in silence like distant thunder. Then, amidst the unfamiliar chaos, a single utterance shattered the fragile tension that had settled in our hiding space. "Sarah isn't gone," the figure said, their voice raw yet eerily familiar. "We need to talk." And just like that, every thread connecting us snapped taut, escalating dread into the kind of uncertainty I could never have anticipated. The moment hung suspended, unresolved and rife with possibility, pulling taut in a world where danger and hope danced perilously close. The air thickened with tension, heavy with the weight of unspoken words and years of lost time. I felt as if a curtain had been drawn back, exposing raw fears and secrets as the haunting silhouette stepped fully into the room. The rhythm of my heart raced against the backdrop of disbelief. There they stood, an echo from the past reborn, a piece of my shattered history materializing with staggering clarity. "Sarah isn't gone," the stranger repeated, desperation lacing their tone. "She needs your help." Ben's grip on my arm tightened, a mix of confusion and urgency swirling in his eyes. I caught the incredulity flickering in his gaze, each fleeting moment sharpening his fear. "Who are you?" he demanded, his protective instincts igniting, shielding his son from whatever might follow. The figure took a step closer, the dim light casting their features into stark relief. In that moment, I recognized the familiar lines and contours etched by time and sorrow. It was Ethan, Sarah's older brother. My past rushed up to meet me, a tidal wave of regret crash landing against the fragile present. "We don't have time for explanations," Ethan said, urgency crackling in his voice. "You don't understand. She's in danger." He gestured behind him, toward whatever lay beyond our meager refuge, eyes darting as if the shadows bore witness to threats unseen. Ben turned to me sharply, doubt and fear entwined. "Is he telling the truth?" "I don't know," I said, swallowing hard. The uncertainty clawed at my throat. The memories I had suppressed for so long began to unfurl, images of laughter, love, and the heartbreak of choices made in haste. "Why shouldn't we just leave?" Ben reasoned, his protective instincts instinctively rising. "They could be after us, too." He glanced down at his son, who squeezed his hand tightly, the innocence in his eyes glaring against the turmoil that surrounded us. Ethan shook his head vehemently. "They're not here for you, not yet at least, but they will be if we don't move. Sarah found something I never even thought possible. And now they know." "Who they?" I asked, my voice barely breaking through the haze of confusion. And what could Sarah possibly have that would put her life in danger? While we were on the precipice of a storm, a sense of déjà vu washed over me. It reminded me of the time we had stumbled upon the truths buried within our small community, a place riddled with hypocrisy and buried secrets. I searched Ben's eyes, desperate to hold on to some semblance of understanding, but I only saw fear reflected back. As if sensing my hesitation, the boy spoke up, his voice a fragile whisper, "Is my mommy okay?" Oh, the fragility of a child's hope could bring even the strongest of walls crumbling down. I had to respond. Wrapping my arms around that spark of innocence, I promised, "We're going to find her." Ethan shifted, determination woven through his brow. "If we don't act fast, it will be too late. If they find out we're talking," he stretched out his hand, inviting us to follow him deeper into uncertainty. I felt the echo of my heart's hesitations battle against the innate desire to protect Ben and his son from whatever storm brewed on the horizon. That I locked eyes with Ben one last time, the weight of history heavy between us. "We can't go back now. We could end up worse," he whispered, casting a glance toward Ethan, the brother who had resurfaced like a specter, demanding trust from ghosts of the past. "Together, well, find a way," I urged, taking a step toward Ethan, feeling as if I was at the edge of a precipice, ready to leap into the unknown. Ben caught my hand tightly, an anchor amid the swirling vortex of conflicting truths and uncertainties. Just then, a sharp noise shattered the air. It came from the hallway, that dreaded cacophony of footsteps heavy and purposeful. "That we don't have time," Ethan urged, his face pale, eyes wide with fear. "We need to move now." In that heartbeat, everything shifted. The haunting specter of potential doom pressed against us, but something raw and unyielding stirred within the depths of my heart. The whispers of hope, cradled in the boy's innocent gaze, urged me forward. As we turned towards the door, chaos and uncertainty clashing behind us, one final thought pierced through the panic. Was the truth I thought I'd left buried truly worth uncovering? Would all of us buried in the past finally be freed, or would we drown amidst the perils of confronting our tangled fates? With one last look back, the revelation came crashing down. "Sarah isn't just alive," Ethan muttered, his breath hitching, "she's been searching for you." And right then, the stakes soared beyond comprehension as the footsteps grew louder and shadows loomed larger, demanding that we either flee or fight. The shadows seemed to stretch and writhe as we moved, their fingers creeping into the uncertainty swirling around us. I felt the weight of fear resting heavily on my chest, constricting my breath. Ben kept a protective hold on his son, glancing back as if the darkness behind us might come alive any moment and swallow us whole. Ethan led us down familiar corridors, ones that echoed with laughter and heartbreak. I fought the memories rushing up to greet me, fragments of happier days interwoven with deceit and loss. It felt absurd to think that they could coexist within these walls, but here we were, straddling the lines of my past and an unpredictable future. Are you sure we're safe here? Ben asked, his tone barely above a whisper, an edge of desperation laced within. Ethan nodded, but his expression remained tense. We must keep moving. We can regroup in the old storeroom. No one will suspect us there. As we arrived at the door to the storeroom, Ethan pushed it open, revealing another layer of half-remembered nostalgia, dusty shelves filled with forgotten memories. It smelled of damp wood and old tools, comforting yet unsettling. I could almost feel Sarah's presence lingering among the shadows. Ben and I stepped inside, pulling the boy with us. There was something about being wrapped in that cozy, barren darkness that felt strangely overwhelmingly hopeful, even amidst the threat lingering in our reality. As the door creaked shut behind us, sealing us in this refuge, the turmoil began to cloud my thoughts. Ethan, if Sarah is alive, why didn't you find a way to bring her home? I couldn't help but question, the unresolved feelings bubbling to the surface like old wounds refusing to heal. Ethan rubbed the back of his neck, a shadow of regret flickering across his features. She wanted to come back, but his breath hitched, as if he were reliving the pain of their fractured history. It wasn't safe for her, or for me. They knew of her search, but I didn't know how much they'd discovered. The boy shifted, his small frame heavy with confusion. What do you mean? Ethan's gaze softened as he knelt down to the boy's level. You'll understand soon, buddy, I promise. Right now, we need to keep each other safe. That I glanced at Ben, who remained stoic, yet the tightness around his mouth revealed a storm brewing within. What are we really up against? He pressed, the protective instinct as fierce as ever. An organization, Ethan said slowly, as if admitting a bitter truth, that wants to keep secrets buried. Sarah didn't just find something, she uncovered a conspiracy, one that runs deep through our town's history. If they find out she's still alive. His voice trailed off, leaving a chilling silence hanging in the air. Ben's brows knitted together, countless questions left unvoiced. I felt the knot in my stomach tighten. It wasn't just about Sarah now. It was about all of us. What does this mean for us? Ethan looked between us, grasping my hand tightly, betraying a hint of desperation. It means we need to move, but we also need to confront this, every single one of us. Together, we can fight. Sarah needs us, and the people behind this have roots deeper than the soil that raised us. Just as he spoke, the world outside shifted ominously. The muffled sound of footsteps echoed through the storeroom, insistent and deliberate. The predators were closing in. A rush of adrenaline coursed through me, mixing with an overwhelming sense of loyalty to protect Ben and the boys at them. I gasped, fear almost choking me. Stay quiet, Ethan said, phone poised in his hand, light illuminating his apprehensive features. We have to decide quickly. Do we hide here or find a way out? In that moment, every instinct I had battled against itself. The prospect of facing whatever lay beyond was more unbearable than the unknown lurking in the shadows. But leaving Sarah, if she truly needed us, felt equally impossible. What do we do? Ben's voice trembled, mirroring the fracture of my resolve. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, a frantic rhythm that sang of hope and trepidation alike. Then, without thinking, I clutched Ben's hand tighter. We can't just abandon her. We owe it to Sarah. Are you sure? Ben replied, uncertainty sawing in his eyes, searching for the ground beneath them. The footsteps grew louder, so close they reverberated through the silence like a warning. Instinctively, the boy pressed against me, trembling. The stakes were not only our lives but the life of someone who should have been here with us all along. Suddenly, the door creaked slightly, a scratch of wood against wood, a promise that everything was about to change. We need to decide. Ethan urged, frustration spilling into his voice. In that moment of chaos, the world spun, and everything hung in the balance. I took a breath, clutching the weight of our decision fiercely. Memories collided with fears. Could we really face the truth that had haunted us for so long? And just as I opened my mouth to rally the courage to speak, the door burst open, flooding the room with glaring light and exposing our tangled web where echoes of the past collided with the unknown. The silhouette framed in the doorway was both familiar and terrifying. The air caught in my throat, fear twisting in knots as the figure stepped inside. "It's time you all learn the truth," they said, voice smooth yet carrying an unshakable weight. My heart stopped, dread pooling in the pit of my stomach. The figure stepped into the storeroom, silhouetted against the harsh light that spilled in from behind. I squinted, struggling to comprehend the familiarity etched in those features. The heartbeat of chaos quickened in my chest, and I felt Ben's grip tighten on my arm, a silent plea for clarity. "Clara?" My voice betrayed me, wavering as it broke through the adrenaline. I hadn't seen her for years, not since the day she chose the unknown over the bonds that tethered us to this place. Then, she had dashed into the night unwilling or unable to bear the weight of the truth that had cornered Sarah. And now, here she stood, weaving darkness and light just by being in the same room with us, surprised to see me. Clara's lips curled, yet her eyes were grave. "Trust me, you're even more surprised to see how deep this rabbit hole goes. Clara, what are you doing here?" Ben's voice was a gravelly whisper, holding a mixture of shock and a cautious kind of hope. "You vanished without a trace. Let's save the reunion for later," she interrupted, her gaze darting around the small space. "We don't have much time. They're coming for you, too." Fear rippled through me, and a hollow pit opened inside. "Who is they?" Clara stepped closer, her presence warm yet fearsome. "The organization. They don't just want Sarah, they want anyone who knows her secrets. What do you know about this?" Ethan's voice was tense, brimming with suspicion. I wondered if he felt the same dizzying mix of relief and resentment that coursed through me. "I know enough to keep you alive. But believe me, confronting them isn't just a choice, it's a gamble for your lives." Clara's gaze softened for a moment, and if I didn't know better, I'd say I saw regret flicker behind her eyes. "You need to follow me. They're distracted, but we can't stay here." The boy, sensing the weight of our fear, seemed smaller than ever. "Mom," he whispered, looking between us with innocent confusion. "Stay close to me," I murmured, gauging the depth of uncertainty that quaked within the group. The flicker of movement outside the door tapped into the survival instinct coursing through each of us. Ethan moved towards Clara, a soldier seeking guidance. "We need to be smart about this." "What's your plan? Get out now," Clara replied, urgency seeped into her voice. "I have a route, but it requires trust, something each of us can't afford to lose right now." Ben's breath came in sharp bursts, his protective instincts morphing into palpable tension. "You expect us to follow you blindly after all this time? After everything, honestly?" "I don't expect you to trust me," she replied, the air crackling with an undercurrent of painful honesty. "But the truth is more dangerous than you realize, and the moment you fight to uncover it, you put targets on your backs. You need me to navigate this world." The boy's grip slackened around my hand, and I knelt to his level, offering what comfort I could amidst the growing storm. "Everything will be okay," I whispered, forcing a smile even as uncertainty threatened to drown us all. "No matter what happens, we'll find a way." Clara had already turned toward the doorway, but paused to glance back, as if reconsidering the weight of what she was about to share. "Ethan, remember that file I sent you? The one you thought was just noise?" Her words were a harbinger laden with significance. His eyes narrowed, recognition dawning like an unwelcome specter. "The one that investigated the connections between." "Yes," she interjected, her voice barely above a whisper. "It goes further than you think. It's not just a conspiracy, it's our past that." As she stepped into the corridor, shadows danced along the fading light, beckoning us into a future cloaked in uncertainty. "Follow me," Clara urged, her voice echoing softly through the growing chaos outside. "Wait," I called out, steeling my resolve. "What do you mean our past?" "Explain it clearly." She hesitated, then. "All of you, Ethan, you, Ben, Sarah, even Jessica's family are much more intertwined than you could ever imagine. The organization has roots in your history, and its reach stretches wider than family trees. They've manipulated everything, and it'll only get worse from here. Before I could process her words, the sounds of footsteps grew louder, a march that threatened to invade our small pocket of safety. We can't stay here, Clara hissed, urging us forward. The urgency in her voice drowned out the lingering questions forming on my lips. As we slipped into the hallway behind Clara, the air grew stale and charged, wrapping us in a cloak of uncertainty. I felt both tethered to my past and propelled toward a precarious future. We moved swiftly, the tension thickening like fog around us, but there was an undeniable push toward a glimmer of hope in the chaos. Each step away from the storeroom felt like unearthing pieces of a puzzle too painful to confront, but as we rounded the corner, something thudded in the distance like a warning bell. It vibrated through the ground, shaking my resolve. The footprints no longer felt distant, they were upon us. Then Clara stopped suddenly, her form rigid as stone, eyes wide with alarm. They're here. Hide. Panic surged as we darted into a small alcove, our hearts racing against the pressure of time. I could feel the boy pressed tightly against me, breath shallow, eyes wide with fear. I wished I could erase his fear, make it all disappear like a fading dream, but the shadows crept closer. Suddenly, the door we had just hurried past burst open with a force that sent tremors through the floor. A group of figures encroached, shrouded in darkness and urgency, and just as one stepped into the light, recognition reeled through me like a spear. It was someone I had never expected to see again. Someone who had once wrapped promises and betrayal in the same breath. "Hello, Clara," the figure said, voice smooth as ice, and I felt the world tilt as a new reality crashed over me, a reckoning unearthing all the old wounds that had yet to heal. Clara's face paled as she recognized the figure, and in that instant, I felt the pendulum of my own memories swing violently between anger and disbelief. "Marcus," she whispered with an edge of fear that sliced through the chaos enveloping us. The man standing before us, draped in a coat that swayed like a curtain in a storm, met Clara's gaze with a smile that illuminated nothing but dark intentions. "I see you've gathered quite the little entourage." His eyes flickered to the boy, and a wave of protectiveness surged through me. "Step away from us, Marcus," Clara managed, her voice strong even as her hands trembled. "This isn't your game anymore. Oh, but darling, the game is just starting." His tone held a sickly sweet cadence, like syrup spilling too thick from a bottle. "And you've unknowingly drawn all the pieces onto the board." Ben squeezed my wrist, his own eyes wide with suspicion and fear. "We can't trust him, Clara." "The last time we saw him I know what he is," Clara shot back, her breath rapid. "But if he's here, then they're not far behind." "Ever the skeptic, I see," Marcus cooed mockingly, adjusting his coat as if it were a costume more than a necessity. "What are you so afraid of, Clara? Is it the truth?" His gaze flickered back to the boy, and I felt the air thicken as if the weight of untold stories bore down on our shoulders. "Is this you're doing?" Clara accused, fury igniting in her eyes. He shrugged, gesturing toward us with a flourish. "You brought them into this, Clara. Sarah's secrets need guardians, and I'm merely ensuring they have the right ones. Your choices, however, have rendered you a target for all of us. Get out of our way." Ben stepped forward, although his bravado felt more like a last resort than a challenge. Now, this isn't how we should greet a long-lost friend, especially when we have so much to discuss." Marcus' smile widened, illuminating the jaggedness of his intentions. "Let's cut through the pleasantries. Clara told you about the organization, right? The shadows lurking in your past. What do you think they'd do if they found out I was here with you?" My heart raced as Clara paled further. "You wouldn't. Oh, but I would." His voice was a soft caress wrapped in a threat. "You see, the truth always finds a way to the surface, doesn't it?" Time slowed, each second a trembling bead strung along the thread of uncertainty that connected us all. As I scanned our surroundings, processing his words, I felt the prick of a familiar sensation slither down my spine. It was fear, but it came dressed in something darker than the shadows that surrounded us. "Marcus," I said, finding a thread of defiance within me, "you can't keep manipulating people's lives. You need to let us go." He cocked his head, amusement dancing in his features. "And what makes you think you can walk away? You're already entangled in this web, my dear. Besides, you haven't even scratched the surface of what lies beneath." A flicker of movement caught my eye behind him. Figures lingered at the edge of the hallway, fully formed shadows poised as if they were waiting for Marcus to make his next move. I couldn't tell how many there were, but my gut twisted. The danger was rising like an impending storm. "Clara," I breathed, trying to remain steady as panic clenched my throat. "We need to move." "Now, good idea," Marcus replied, the joyfulness pulsing with malice. "But where do you plan to run? The walls have ears, and trust me, they'll be expecting you." A sudden thought pierced through the fog surrounding me. Their eyes, their hold on us was more than just intimidation, it was a connection far deeper than I had anticipated. "You knew we would be here?" I asked, voice trembling slightly. "Not you specifically, but the moment Clara stepped back into the light, the pieces began to align." He took a slow step forward, his presence suffocating. "I believe our dialogue needs to shift toward collaboration rather than confrontation. That's not happening." Clara's voice, though steady, quaked with unspoken fear. "If you think we're just going to sit down and negotiate over your games right then," before I could respond, a crash echoed through the framework, reverberating like a thunderclap. The figures in the hallway turned, alerted by the unmistakable sound of approaching chaos. Panic erupted, and Clara lunged forward to grab the boy, my heart seeming to chase after us with desperate need. That we ducked behind the closest door, pressing ourselves against the cold surface and gasping for breath. The boy whimpered softly under his breath, and I softly stroked his hair, cherishing his innocence amidst the turmoil. "What do we do?" he whispered, voice trembling. Beneath this veil of turmoil lay a fragile hope that couldn't be extinguished. "That we fight," Clara replied firmly, though I could hear the undertone of uncertainty wrapped within her strength. "We fight together." Just as I opened my mouth to respond, another deafening crash erupted, and everything fell apart. The door we depended on buckled against the pressure of a shadowy force, ready to plunge us toward the unknown. Above the cacophony, Marcus' voice floated toward us like shards of glass. "This is far from over, Clara. You'll regret stepping back into the light." With that, the door gave way, a wave of darkness pouring in. In that moment of chaos, I caught one last glimpse of Clara's wide eyes, the fear of the past merging with the apprehension of the future, and I knew we were now standing at the precipice of a revelation too profound to ignore. That day, the boy's hand in mine felt heavier than ever. It held the weight of secrets, fears, and choices we'd yet to confront. And as the shadows flooded in, engulfing us like the depths of night, I realized I was no longer just a bystander in someone else's story. We were entwined now, and whatever lay ahead was destined to change everything we thought we knew. Chaos ensued as the shadows seeped into the small room, swirling around us like a tempest. I could hear Clara's frantic breaths next to me, a melody punctuated by the boy's soft whimpers. The remnants of our last moments of safety fluttered away, leaving us vulnerable in this engulfing darkness. My heart raced as instinct kicked in, urging me to protect them at all costs. "Clara, where's the nearest exit?" I whispered, trying to keep my voice steady despite the storm of uncertainty raging within me. "They're blocking the main staircase," she replied, her voice laced with a sense of dread. "We might be able to get to the fire escape in the back," but a voice cut through the chaos, a low rumble that echoed off the walls. "Run, Clara. You can't hide in the shadows forever." It was Marcus again, his presence looming large even amid the chaos. "And you should know better than to underestimate your enemies. He's trying to play with your head," I urged Clara, shaking off the goosebumps creeping across my skin. But the truth was, Marcus knew our fears better than we did, and that thought gnawed at my resolve. Suddenly, the boy turned towards me, his wide, innocent eyes shining with clarity. "Are you going to go back?" he asked softly, a lingering hope mingling with the terror in the air, as if he understood the contours of fear and courage better than any of us. "I promise you, we're not going back, only forward," I assured him, though doubt curled in my stomach like a coiling snake. He nodded, biting his lower lip, clinging firmly to my hand. "Stay close," Clara said, her voice shifting to a commanding tone as she led us further into the shadows. We ducked and maneuvered, every step a calculated risk, every heartbeat a reminder of how fast our lives could change. My mind raced with questions. What did Marcus know? What awaited us at the end of our escape? As we reached the end of the corridor, I strained to hear any signs of pursuit. A persona, several sprinted towards us. Fear crashed into me like a tidal wave. Now! Clara shouted, pushing the back door open with newly found adrenaline that we burst into a narrow alley just as the figures turned the corner behind us. I felt the light from the street lamp seep into the dimness, a beacon begging us to choose the path of escape. But just as we raced ahead, a realization struck, the alley split like a forked tongue. Which way? I gasped, scanning both paths. The left seemed darker, an echo of foreboding, the right, bathed in dull yellow light, hummed with the distant sounds of life amidst the chaos. There's no time. Clara insisted. We trust our instincts. With a quick nod, we veered left, plunging deeper into the shadows, the echoes of our pursuers fading behind us. The air thickened with tension, each footfall pressed into the earth like a small shout, a call for resilience. The boy's small hand wrapped tightly around mine felt like a lifeline, grounding me even as anxiety threatened to take over. Clara, stop. I breathed, pulling her back away from a street that opened before us, one I knew could lead to either safety or chaos. We can't keep running blind. We need a plan. She hesitated, processing my words. For a moment, I saw the flicker of uncertainty flash across her expression. Doubt, maybe fear, perhaps even the thoughts of what lay ahead tormented both of us. But before she could respond, a figure emerged from the shadows beside us, creeping up quietly behind the third door we had yet to check. Every fiber in my being ignited with a sense of alarm, but there stood a woman, her face pale but familiar. Sarah. I breathed, recognizing her instantly and noticing the dark stains that marred her clothes, a contrast against the suffocating dark, like a flower growing against the odds. Her eyes were pools of concern, and they darted between us. Go. Now. She hissed, urgency coursing through her voice. They're right behind me. The boy pressed closer, gripping my side, the terror palpable in the air. No. Clara cried, stepping toward Sarah, her face betraying renewed hope even in the grim situation. You can't go back, you'll be in danger. Without hesitation, Sarah dismissed Clara's plea with a wave. This is bigger than you, Clara. If they find me here with you, then we'll figure it out, together. Clara insisted fiercely, but beneath her resolve, I felt the tension unraveling, a fracture forming in the foundation of her strength. Just as Sarah took a determined step forward, a loud echo thundered down the alley, the weight of what might soon arrive hanging menacingly in the air. You don't understand, she continued, her voice rising above the tumult. I'm not who you think I am. They're looking for the ground beneath our feet seemed to tremble, the ominous approaching chaos encroaching every moment. As the shadows encircled us, I felt a strange connection unravel between Clara, the boy, and Sarah, binding us all in whispered secrets and unexplainable truths. The only certainty I had was that as the darkness encroached, bringing the weight of unknown revelations, the flicker of hope was lighting the way, hinting at threads of courage and strength we had yet to discover. In an urgent instinct, rather than reply, I tightened my grip on the boy's hand and glanced at Clara, making a choice neither of us anticipated. Together, I whispered, my chest tightening with the gravity of our situation, whatever it takes. But right then, as if in response to our whispered pact, the shadows surged, threatening to engulf us. Sarah's eyes widened, and a sharp crack echoed through the alley, echoing like a warning bell. Just as we began to turn, a piercing sound sliced through the veil of darkness, a gunshot, hoarse and resounding, echoing off the walls, charging the very air with a sinister promise. That I turned to run, but the crack of wood splintering and glass shattering rose like a towering wave, crashing over the moment and leaving a chilling uncertainty as the whispers of fate began to intertwine with our desperate choices. And just then, everything shifted. The chaos erupted into a frenzied initiation of fear as the gunshot rang out, shattering the fragile walls of our reality. Adrenaline surged through me like an electric current, bolting me into motion. "Run!" I yelled, the urgency propelling us forward into the unknown. Clara's breath hitched as she grasped my hand tighter than ever, the pulse of her fear sinking with mine. The boy, though trembling, kept pace behind us, the instinct for survival igniting a fire within him. With every footfall, I could feel the weight of dread closing in around us, amplifying with each beat of my heart. The shadows had always threatened to consume us, but at that moment, under the threat of that gunshot, the darkness suddenly felt a Livian entity of its own, coveting our lives as it prowled just out of view. "Where to?" Clara asked, voice barely above a whisper as we dashed past an alley that twisted off into deeper shadows. The options dwindled as the aimless pursuit of our fate became painfully clear. The world outside was fraught with danger. I scanned our surroundings for potential refuge, a hint of hope threading through my swirling thoughts. We approached another intersection where the streets converged, lights flickering sporadically. The glimmer of life beyond the chaos ignited a flicker of optimism, yet the approaching footsteps reminded me that they were no more than the cruel demons haunting our escape. "There," I pointed to an old, rusted door that seemed to beckon us. "Let's hide there." Just for a moment, Clara nodded, urgency coloring her features as we rushed forward, heartbeats mingling in the palpable tension of our situation. Just as I thrust the door open, allowing Clara and the boy to slip inside, I caught a fleeting glimpse of figures on the streets, dark silhouettes moving, searching. "Our pursuers, stay quiet," I hissed, pushing the door shut and enveloping us in a cloak of musty darkness. The air was thick, laced with the weight of lost stories and whispered secrets. I felt the boy press against me, his small body quaking with fear that mirrored my own. "That I am scared," he murmured, his voice a thread pulled taut with vulnerability. "Me too," I admitted, kneeling to meet his eye level. "But we're going to be okay. I promise you." Clara stood nearby, her hand trembling as she brushed a lock of hair from her forehead. "What if they find us?" she whispered, fear dripping from her words. "They won't," I insisted, though a shiver of uncertainty coursed through me. Yet in that moment, that fragile promise aimed solely at the boy gave me a sliver of hope, a thread I could hold on to. Just then, the boy shifted, his wide eyes catching movement outside the slimmest gap between the door and its frame. "What if they come here?" he asked, innocent but starkly aware of the danger lurking just beyond our makeshift shelter. Suddenly, the door rattled against its frame as a heavy boot thudded against it, sending a jolt through each of us. My heart stilled for a heartbeat, then raced anew, the relentless rhythm echoing through my entire being. "Quick! We have to find a way out!" I shouted, though my voice cracked, caught in a vice grip of panic. Clara pulled the boy closer, their faces pale with fear. "Where can we go?" Clara asked, her earlier confidence slipping like sand through her fingers. "Maybe behind the counter. There's often a cargo door in old places like this," I suggested. "There must be a way out of here." The boy's eyes widened. "You mean like in a pirate ship?" he asked, his imagination weaving a whimsical thread into our grim reality. "Yes, just like that," I replied, kneeling before him. "But we have to be really quiet." "Can you do that for me?" He nodded, determination flickering across his youthful features, battling against the fear that clutched him tight. "Let's go," Clara urged, urgency knitting her voice tightly. Together, we moved toward the counter, feeling the weight of the world on our shoulders and the shadows stretching dangerously close behind us. Clara and I shifted aside boxes and debris, the sound of footsteps outside faltered momentarily. A brief pause that could only mean one thing: uncertainty. Were they still nearby? My heart thudded like a war drum in my ears, urging my body forward, each movement a reckless gamble. Finally, the boy found a loose panel beneath the counter, the dust of ages swirling around us like whispers of forgotten lives. He tugged at it, digging his small fingers into the crevice, a flame of hope igniting within us. "This way!" he cheered, the sound of his voice cutting through the tension like bright sunlight breaking through clouds. "Good job," I said, loudly out of relief, and in that moment, it felt like we might have a chance. But just as Clara began to lift the panel wide enough for us to squeeze through, another quake rumbled through the door, this time more demanding, more certain. My breath hitched, dread pooling in my gut as I realized we had mere seconds before our sanctuary was no more. We have to go. I barked, the urgency piercing through my haze of fear, and as Clara ushered the boy through the narrow passage, my heart sank as I took one last glance at the figures now looming in shadow with intent in their eyes. I clambered through, just as a blast cracked through the doorframe, splinters erupting like fireworks. The world around us ruptured, flinging us into an uncertain void that we stumbled onto the other side, our world transformed into bright lights and echoing clamor, a stark contrast to the darkness we had just escaped. In the distance, a siren wailed a haunting melody that harmonized with our hearts, but just as we began to catch our breaths, Clara's face went pale, and I turned to see what gripped her in fear. A figure stepped from the shadows behind us, silhouetted against the blinding lights. "Marcus, did you really think you could escape that easily?" He taunted, his voice a chilling wind against the warmth of our fleeting hope. The realization clawed at my insides, tightening every corporeal aspect of my being. He intended to play with our lives again, that much was clear. The shadows danced around him like loyal hounds. Before I could think, before I could react, something even more shocking unfolded. A piercing scream reverberated in the air. Sarah! A woman, once an ally, now blocked our path, her expression twisted in pain and urgency. Go! She cried to us, but her voice was drowned in hurt. The shadows closing in, the future spiraled open before us, uncertainty spilling like a torrent. I was now faced with a choice: hold on to the flickering light of hope or succumb to the encroaching darkness, led astray by painful revelations that threatened to shatter everything we fought for. The chaotic turmoil around us quieted for the briefest moment, and a haunting stillness settled in the very core of my being. I had never been one to lean toward battles fought with fists or weapons, but at this moment, I knew that the fight was not just a battle for survival, it was a fight for the truth, our truth, woven tightly into the fabric of time and choices we had made. "Sarah!" I shouted, urgency trembling through my voice as I clutched tightly to the boy. His innocent features reflected a mixture of fear and courage that swelled within me, and I felt an overwhelming need to protect him. In the face of Marcus' malevolence, my heart raced, oscillating between the instinct to run and the inexplicable pull of confronting him, to demand answers. "What do you want with us?" I called out, my voice steady despite the rising dread that swirled around us like an encroaching storm. His smile, sharp and deceptive, lingered in the air, taunting. "You were always too curious, weren't you? But curiosity comes with consequences. You see, it's not just Sarah that's caught in the web, it's all of you, a little family story intertwined with a much larger narrative." Clara stepped forward instinctively, her arms outstretched. "You don't have to do this, Marcus. We can find a way to." He cut her off with a wave of his hand, dismissing her words like a bee buzzing merely for annoyance. "You don't understand the depth of the game we're playing. This is bigger than Sarah, bigger than any of us. There are layers to it. There's a truth that, if uncovered, could unravel everything you thought you knew." That I stepped in front of Clara and the boy, feeling the strength of the moment swell around me, preparing my heart for whatever lay ahead. "What do you mean? What does that even mean? Did you really think Sarah's disappearance was random? It was orchestrated, a necessary sacrifice to preserve our little secrets." His intention echoed through the concrete, heavy as stone, nullifying my once fervent hope. A moment of silence passed, piercing through like a shard of ice. My gaze sharpened, connecting dots across the years' silent conversations, lost friendships, all leading to this moment, where past and present collided with unyielding force. "You think that hiding means protecting?" I challenged, anger surging and drowning the fear that clawed at my spirit. "You've hidden just as much as you've exposed, Marcus. And now it's time to face the consequences." That he stepped closer, the danger radiating off him like the heat from an approaching blaze. Ah, the bravado of desperation. "You think you can defy me? We both know that you're tangled in a game of shadows that you can't even fathom. It's not just us standing against anything, there are people that want to control every narrative here, and you're in the way." My resolve surged. "Sarah deserves to know the truth. We all deserve to know our truth, whatever darkness that may bring." As if the universe responded to my rallying cry, inflections sped through the shadows before us like electric currents. Then came the blast of deafening noise. Shouting footsteps bounded toward us, a terrifying confirmation of the chaos Marcus had unleashed. "Run!" Clara shouted, urgency seeping from her lips like a frantic prayer. "We can't stay here." Instinct kicked in, we turned sharply, rushing back into the bright labyrinth of the street as chaos erupted behind us. I held tightly to the boy's hand, feeling him propel itself forward, his presence both a tether to my humanity and a reminder of what we fought for. "Where do we go?" he asked, his breath shallow, the tremble in his voice echoing in my heart. "Anywhere but here," I yelled, pushing past mingled crowds, the sense of life and confusion mingling around us. "Just keep moving." As we surged through throngs of startled faces, an urgency swept over me. I felt Clara's hand slip into mine, the connection building between us, an unspoken promise to face the chaos together. Just then, a tidy alleyway emerged to the left, shadows pooled against the brick walls. "Quick!" I shouted, guiding the boy as we slipped into the narrow opening, hoping for a momentary reprieve from the storm pursuing us. In that cramped space, I turned to Clara, meeting her gaze, dampened by fear but ignited with determination. "Where to from here?" "I remember an old place just a couple of blocks down," Clara said, her voice steadier now, channeling the urgency into something more productive. "A storage R8 has to be hidden, and if we're lucky maybe." Her voice faded, the weight of reality pressing in. "Maybe what?" I pressed, desperation coloring my words. "Maybe Sarah could help us figure this all out," she whispered, a fragile thread of hope inviting what felt impossible. "But how? How do we know she still is who we thought she was?" I felt doubt seep in, the resolve wrapped around my heart faltering. "Because we have to believe," she replied fiercely, fire igniting behind her eyes. "All I know is that Sarah's worth it. The boy's worth it. We have to try. We won't survive without trusting what we hold dear." And just as those words left her lips, echoes of footfalls bombarded the solemnity of our alleyway hideout. My heart raced, and instinct kicked in again, prompting us to move, an undeniable surge to protect each other at all costs. "Now," I urged, pulling Clara and the boy with me, our feet carrying us deeper into the labyrinth of unfamiliar streets. The darkness wrapped around us like a cloak, shielding our presence as we wove through the veil, and there, in the stillness underneath the chaos, inklings of familiarity guided our path, a thread connecting us back to a story that woven lives together. "Where's the storeroom?" I whispered, searching the environment for something that felt right amid the growing unease. "The last street on the left," Clara replied, her voice now laced with conviction. That we pressed onward, adrenaline surging through me, energized by the thought that whatever lay ahead could unravel this chaos not just for us, but for all those who had been caught in the crossfire of inexplicable truths. As we rounded the final corner, the storeroom loomed before us like a sanctuary carved into the heart of the storm. The breaths we took echoed louder than our racing hearts, promising discovery, promised meaning, and healing. Clara turned to the boy, crouching low so she was eye level with him. "You remember how I promised we'd stand together?" she asked, a touch of warmth flooding her tone. "No matter what happens, I want you to remember that." He nodded fervently, gripping her small hand as if it were a lifeline, and in that moment, layers of history wrapped us closer together, weaving hope threads in the fabric of our fears. I felt it in the way the shadows shifted, the way the night became a companion in our journey while urging us towards something greater. Suddenly, a piercing siren wailed in the distance, echoing through the street like a promise of awakening. But against that backdrop of chaos, a profound rush surrounded us, a realization nestled deep in my chest. The truth waited in the walls of that storeroom, and every step we took now solidified our resolve. We took that final step together through the storeroom door, hearts widespread with defiance, ready to uncover whatever lay ahead. And as we crossed the threshold, I knew we had ignited a fire within, one that could burn away the pain, we threw the ties that had bound us, and let us finally embrace the truth that would shape our fates. "Let's go find her," I said, my voice now a quiet challenge, a moment wrapped in certainty. We would face the storm, and this time, we would not back down. In that darkness, I felt the flicker of our lives shine like bright stars through the shadows, illuminating paths ahead. The final shattering note of our journey had struck. I could feel it in my bones, leading us toward answers we had been desperate to weave into our lives. Together and against the shadows, we would rise. And as we stepped forward, a thought glimmered unsettlingly, reminding me that light always emerged from darkness, inviting hope to reignite until the very last breath.